Welcome to the April 2021 review of the month on the allotment here on allotment 6B, and we're looking at 6B, which is the granddaughter inspired scarecrow for our allotment. So let's just quickly have a review. April, of course, has been an absolute disaster. Sorry, I shouldn't have said disaster as we looked at my wife. It's been a disaster in terms of the weather, and any gardener will tell you that with record numbers of frosts every morning, virtually nothing is growing. The wise old heads of the allotment tell us that we're 3 weeks behind. But what we're looking at here is a row of broad beans. And I think they are just beginning to show. The main plot itself, like the main ring of the circus, has been dug during April. I mean, we've managed that. But let's just see if we can find any evidence of broad beans coming up. Actually, that might be some evidence. We've managed to take our eye off the ball somewhat due to something which I'll show you in just a moment. So you'll see lots of areas which would really do with a little bit of a hoe. Look, I think there's a broad bean just there, and you can see that the path at the side of the allotment really could do with a bit of a mow and a bit of a trim. This is next door neighbour's rhubarb, which I covet and envy. These are second earlies, just about to be covered over, all in a row. So we've got nothing in the middle. That's still plans for that. And then just to the right of them, we are currently standing just in front of the first earlies, and then we've got some main crop potatoes. So this is all that. So that's all going to be potatoes in that area there. And just to the right of them, we've got a row of onions, and just underneath the scarecrow, some garlic. Planted underneath the wigwam are some French beans, but they haven't dared raise their heads because of the talk of frost. There's a big weed growing next to the ancestral rhubarb, which doesn't seem to be doing all that well, but nevertheless, one stalk, one petiole and one leaf are all showing. And this is our vine. And the vine, although it just looks like an old stick, has got some rather nice looking buds on it. So that will grow up onto its support. These are raised beds, this time with the winter work, with the addition of support for netting and protection. What we have found is that now that support's in place, there isn't room between them to get in. So next winter we'll space them out a little bit better. In front of us here we've got some onions which have been growing throughout the winter, and a tulip. Onions and tulips, great companions, and rather weed looking radishes growing in there. In number 2, although you can barely see any, we've got peas that are going to come up in here. Number 3 is for herbs and asparagus, and in fact, that's interesting. You can see the asparagus is just beginning to do something here. It was in its fern state last year, and well, maybe we'll have a harvest, I don't know. And then we've got some spring onions and various other little bits and pieces in here. And number 4 is for strawberries. Strawberries and whatever else. I think we may well have to supplement the strawberries in there with some from the shop. But I can see there's a flower forming on at least one of them. What do we got here? Well, look, this is the wild garden area. This is like the wild cottage garden. There's a plum tree. We've had some nice blossom at the beginning of April, and I don't think the frost got it to the extent that I think there may well be fruit about to form on this thing. Apple is a little bit after plum, so we've got the blossom on this one. two sorts of apple on this rootstock, so hopefully the deer aren't going to come in and munch them away. Gooseberry, you can always rely on gooseberry, and it looks like we might have a nice little crop forming. In truth, we're still eating gooseberries frozen from last year. And then down here in amongst the grass, which we really should be doing something about, are black currants, red currants, and this little fellow, which is blueberry. And Monty Don has just told us last week that blueberries have to be grown in an acid soil with an ericaceous compost, so he may have to be transferred into a pot. Raspberries, and this year at last the raspberries seem to be doing something. And rhubarb, our own rhubarb, finally seems to be growing. There's compost bin number 2. What we discovered over the winter was that leaf mould is a good thing to put in there. And compost bin number 1, where we're still tossing in all bits of uncooked kitchen rubbish and again some leaf mould. But this is the main effort during April. It's a shed, and I'm just busy painting it at the moment. And it's because of the shed that I've taken my eye off the boil. But yeah, so this needs painting, wood preserving, caulking, caulking, to make it waterproof. Very funny, we had some rain, heavy rain, just a couple of days ago, and it was all coming in. So I went onto Google and I typed in, how do I, and then amongst the helpful suggestions as to what I might want to type next, it said, waterproof a shed. So I think that's probably what we're going to do. Got it on a nice base of plastic and pebbles, because we're not allowed to put permanent concrete down. But there we are. So that's it, that's April. See you next month.